Good morning, everybody. This is Lee Brower, and welcome to Meaningful Mondays. I'm coming to you. You may feel like I'm coming to you from some exotic island. However, I'm in my underneath my garage in my studio, which is right next to my office. I have a little green screen. You can tell by the green behind my hands. And so I may not be in this exotic place, but it makes me feel like I am. And I hope for those of you that are suffering through the ice cold this week that maybe this warms your heart just a titch. I know I'm traveling to Canada this week and to Toronto, and I was looking at the weather, and it's going to be 16 degrees as a high when the first day that I get there. So I'm using this to kind of get me ready for the next 3 or 4 days of really cold. Anyway, first of all, let me just say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to Meaningful Mondays. Thank you for taking the time to write me little notes, suggestions, comments, and notes of gratitude and appreciation. They are meaningful, and they're making this experience meaningful. May I share one letter that I received recently? And this is... well, let me read you just some excerpts from it and explain what they're doing as I go. I won't share their last name, but for obvious reasons. But let me just share this letter. It starts out by saying, "Hello, Mr. Brower. My name is Max, and my father, Greg, has been involved in your coaching program for quite some time now." He said, "I believe you're aware that he recently was diagnosed with cancer. And shortly after his diagnosis, we celebrated his 55th birthday, and he mentioned the concept of Meaningful Monday, which he learned from you, and he shared it with us, his family. He said, we loved the concept, and we thought that we should create our own Meaningful Monday as a gift to him to help him through his battle. So yesterday was our 5th Meaningful Monday. Our Meaningful Mondays consist of a note that I write for him. And then Max included the quote from Jim Valvano, which is a quote that I've always loved and is truly inspirational. Here's the quote. "To me, there are 3 things everyone should do every day. Number 1 is laugh. Number 2 is think. Spend some time in thought. Number 3, you should have your emotions move you to tears. If you think, you laugh, and you cry, that's a heck of a day. You do that 7 days a week, you're going to have something special." With that quote in mind, the obvious path for Meaningful Mondays is to get our Father to laugh, to cry, and to think. He went on to ask if I would be willing to share some quotes with them periodically that they could use in their Meaningful Monday. And of course I will. And let me pass this request on to you. Isn't that great advice? To spend each day to where we laugh during the day, we think during the day, and perhaps our emotions bring us to where we realize how human we are, and we cry. We cry for those that we love or for those that are in pain or in need, or maybe we just cry because we're grateful and happy. But we're able to use those emotions every day. So if you have any thoughts, any stories, any quotes that you think would be comforting and inspirational, please send them to me. And you can send them to lee@leebrower.com or lee@empoweredwealth.com. And I will forward those on, and we'll use some of them in our Meaningful Mondays. I would love that, and I would love to share that. Thank you. On my mind lately is the concept of time. As you know, we started the beginning of this program at the beginning of the year saying, can we get to the end of the year? And instead of saying, I can't believe it's the end of the year already. I can't believe that we're already in December. But we're going to get to the end of the year, and we're going to look back, and we're going to say, can you believe how much we accomplished in just 1 year? How meaningful this year has been. You know we're going to do it because we're working at it together. So let me talk about time for just a second. One of my favorite authors is a man by the name of William George Jordan. He's written several books. 2 of them I think are absolutely mandatory reading. One is called The Power of Truth, and the other is called The Majesty of Calmness. You can find those. They've been out of print. I think The Power of Truth is back in print and actually can be purchased through Kindle. But if you'd like copies of the book, we sell them at basically our cost, and you can go to our store on either empoweredwealth.com or leebrower.com and order them there. I've gotten such wonderful, wonderful comments from people who've read them. In fact, one of my coaching clients called this last week, and he said that he memorized the last 2 paragraphs of The Power of Truth, and he's been using it to inspire himself, to inspire his team as a leader, and to inspire those that are around him. So, but in that book, lots of wisdom. Let me just share with you a couple of thoughts that he wrote. And by the way, he wrote these books around 1900. One was written just before 1900, the other was written just shortly thereafter. But when you read them, you'll think they were written for today. But he said, so I'm going to read this, so just bear with me. The one great defense of humanity against the charge of unfulfilled duties is lack of time. In other words, I don't have enough time. There just isn't enough time to do things. The constant clamoring for time would be pathetic were it not for the fact that most individuals throw away more of it than they use. Now, the next sentence is really interesting. He says, time is the only really valuable possession of man, for without it, every power within him would cease to exist. Yet he recklessly squanders his great treasure as if it were valueless. The wealth of the whole world could not buy 1 second of time. Life is only time. Eternity is only more time. So I think about that, and I believe that we make a meaningful life. We make a meaningful eternity, really, from how we make a meaningful life, which boils down to how we make each day meaningful. And I've talked before about the 3 elements of life, and they're really, everything falls within that. The first is love. That's the driver. Its closest cousin, which is still part of number 1, is gratitude. Love and gratitude go together. And I think real gratitude is expressed in action. Real love is expressed in action. So that's why they work so well together. Number 2 is learning. How we learn, how we capture what we do with that learning, if we're learning every day. The third one is how we share. And when we share, we give that experience, that learning, a life of its own that can outlive us. So as I've had the blessing of working with so many of you, there's some of you out there lately that have been saying, at the end of our sessions or at the end of a day of where we're working together in a workshop, instead of saying, my greatest insight was, what you're saying is, today I learned that. And when you say that, it empowers you to think differently, to really take ownership for that experience, not to have insight. Today I learned that, and I'm going to use that to do the following. So since then, I've thought about this. I have been doing that, and I've had a mindset shift. I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I ask is, what can I learn today? And I preset my mind to be looking for those learning opportunities. And I've learned some great things. I was just thinking yesterday, as I went through the day yesterday, by 10 o'clock, I had several things that I'd made notes on that I had learned, that I've captured, and that I'll use. And just having that mindset shift makes a huge difference. And it may be something so simple. I remember last week when I first started asking this, excuse me, something in my eye here. Must be those wind blowing off the palm trees. They're just kind of blowing some dust there. But I was driving along and I said, what can I learn today? And it was something as simple as this. Do you ever get where you're just driving along and not paying attention? You're just so focused on the things that you've got to do and where you're going. But when I asked that question, all of a sudden I saw these mountains that I'm driving by. They're beautiful. They have white snow on them, beautiful blue sky, white fluffy clouds. And I said, I learned today that I live in one of the most beautiful places on earth. So my challenge to you for this coming week, get started. When you wake in the morning, ask yourself, what can I learn today? Write it down right now. I would like you to write this down so you don't forget it. What can I learn today? And then let your subconscious go to work. And then at night, at the conclusion of the day, write down this sentence, today I learned that, and fill it in. And then you'll start doing that. If you'll do this for successive days, you will have a mindset shift, and you'll start capturing more of the wonderful things, more of the meaningful things that are around you. I have challenged several people with this now, several of my private coaching clients, and they've started doing it with their team and their employees. In 2 hours, I will be having my positive focus with my team. Last week, I challenged them. So they're coming prepared to say, last week, I learned that, and this is what I'm going to do with it. So I challenge you to accept this, and I will be talking to you again next Monday. I will be coming to you live. I go from Toronto to Los Angeles on the beach in Santa Monica, and so I will see some of you there. But I challenge you to ask these two questions over the next week. Have a meaningful day. Have a meaningful week. Have a meaningful year. We will have a meaningful life that will help us determine the meaningful eternity that we'll have. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.